Namaste, everyone. I am Isha, the spiritual director of the Assisi Institute in Rochester, New York. And I'm so glad that you are joining us for this inspired podcast with a spiritual brother of mine, Conor Mc Court from Northern Ireland. This is the first time I've ever done a podcast with anybody from Ireland. So I'm thrilled at this possibility and looking forward to taking a risk and looking forward to how everything is going to unfold. Let me give you a little bit of my background that a little bit of you might find interesting. Although most of my background is Italian, my mother, as a matter of fact, was born in Italy. But when I was 16, I went to live with a family here in the States in America who are very Irish. In fact, my foster father is first generation Irish.
Oh, right, yeah.
His mother came from Ireland. So even though I, again, am mostly Italian in my background with a little bit of Scotch thrown in, I can certainly relate to your Irishness, and I'm so glad to be having a conversation with you.
And you, Craig.
Let me just start here. Conor is from Northern Ireland. He was raised in Northern Ireland. He's been married, how many years did you tell me?
24.
24 years, and he has 7 children. And one of the things that really captures my interest in Conor and what he's doing is on 2 levels. One, he is attempting to live with a wife and 7 children, a contemplative life. So I'm really looking forward to talking to you about that. But you also want to teach contemplative prayer and a contemplative lifestyle to people like yourself living in the world. So let me start here. How did this Irish Catholic boy from Northern Ireland end up on this contemplative path in teaching contemplative lifestyle and contemplative prayer to others?
It's been a journey, Craig, to this point. To be honest, I never set out to teach anybody. I was more a very private person. I remember the morning the idea just came to me. It was a cold winter's morning. I was laying in bed. It was cold. I mean, sometimes on a cold morning, it takes you a bit longer getting out of bed. So normally when I wake up, I'll set the alarm early. I'll say a few prayers to myself, a few silent prayers before I get my legs out of bed, as I approach the day ahead. But I remember this morning laying in bed, and I was just after finishing my prayers and thinking, right, my faculties were sort of joining together. Right, get yourself up, Conor, for the day ahead. It was I don't know what the word would be, epiphany or what it was, but I was laying in bed, laying flat, and I felt like a pressure in my heart area, and it was a strange feeling because with the pressure it was on my heart, I could feel gaps between where the fingers would be, spaces. And I just lay there, thinking, well, maybe it's just one of these wee special moments you get now and again, just flickers at you, So I thought, right, I'll just accept it and not panic and keep calm. But a thought came to me. I just thought it wasn't for me. I just rose up, saying that it wasn't the ability or the gift. It was like you've a way to bring people back to themselves. You've been blessed to bring people back home to themselves. And I didn't know what this is about. I knew nothing about it. And for years, I didn't really accept it because I wasn't a teacher. I was just a guy trying to get my meditations right and trying to get that experience and that wee bits of moments. You go, yeah, there's something here, But it was a changer because I wrote it down in a journal. The message was you have the ability to bring people back to themselves, and I wrote it down and I put it away on a bookshelf. And for years it lay there. But the thought keep on coming back to me, Craig, like nudging me. Like I wasn't forgetting about it because it was so clear that it wasn't my type of thought. It came from somewhere else. So I struggled with it. Who was I to teach? Who was I? And then when I realized I'm a guy with no baggage. I'm just sitting here open. I'm receptive. Why me? Why not? Why can't I? Why? And then I thought to myself, if it did come from a higher source, who am I to deny that? I have to follow this. I'm going to make mistakes along the way. I'm going to trip up, make mistakes, yeah. But I think I need to follow it. So I came to the point was where I felt that I had to let go and let God take over, because I wasn't in control of this. I was just here. And as the journey went on, I felt that then building up inside that I wanted to help people. Maybe have a wee way of bringing people, just letting people, giving them a wee method of just like practicing the presence of God, feeling that energy, feeling that space within you expand. And I put myself to the task. And then throughout my spiritual life, Craig, I've been very alone. Where I come from, nobody hears of Yogananda, nothing. Um, some outside family members weren't too open to the idea, and I got pretty heavily criticized. Who's this guy up in your wall and stuff like that, but I knew inside.
Well, I'm thinking of that phrase by Jesus in the New Testament that a prophet is never honored in his own town, among his own people.
No, yeah. And to be honest, the only time I sort of felt belonging was with the Assisi Institute. Once I heard you speak, I can relate to this guy, I can relate to you. What you're saying is, yeah. I've never heard it before. Yeah, definitely, I can relate to you. And then you did inspire me to sort of get up and go, yeah, I can do this. Because your speeches were inspiring. I thought, right, I can do this as well, But I never want to set out to do this, if you know what I mean.
Well, let me just make a comment, an observation, two thoughts. People that volunteer to be teachers usually aren't called to be teachers.
Yeah.
Often when somebody is called to the teaching ministry and to serve in that way, it kind of comes to them. The call comes to them. They don't go to it.
Yeah.
Because often if somebody raises their hand and volunteers, not all the time, but often my assumption is the call is not there and there's some sort of ego gratification. Second thing that stands out to me about what you said is that it feels overwhelming. It feels intimidating. One of the qualifications, I think, of being a good teacher, paradoxically, is that we feel inadequate to the task.
Yeah. And that's where I struggled, yeah.
Yeah. So all of those represent a really good beginning on your part.
I think as well, Craig, I know deep down in my heart, like I have no personal gain. I have no personal desires for gain. I have none of that whatsoever. And I knew that there was no egoic part of it whatsoever.
Yes.
There was nothing there to indicate to me that, oh yes, do this. Because I didn't want to do it.
Yeah. Yes.
And then it goes, if I didn't want to do it, I'm not just letting myself down, but I kind of think deeply and think, well, I'm letting my soul and letting God and all that, I'm letting everything down if I don't do this. So for a long while, I went along the path of least resistance. I started doing bits of writing and putting things together, but I thought to myself, is the belief still there for me to do it?
Yes.
I did. For 3 years, I struggled with that. But now I became more, no, I'm stubborn. I'm going to do this.
Well, I think stubbornness is one of the necessary traits of anybody that's going to do spiritual work. I say to people that the spiritual life is always a mixture of grace and grit. Grace and grit. But let me ask you this. So tell me, again, I know you grew up in Northern Ireland, you grew up Catholic. When did this yearning for a spiritual path and this yearning for the divine, for God, when did that start to percolate? And And particularly, again, being born in an Irish Catholic family.
It was probably as well growing up in the Troubles in Northern Ireland and seeing Catholic kill Protestant and vice versa. It was pretty tricky time back then to be a Catholic. I knew friends got shot. I knew there was bombs went off, and they broke down our houses and ripped out our windows. I remember the sounds going off when I was younger. So I guess it started me thinking maybe, like, why does Christian fight Christian? It doesn't make sense. If you follow the word of Christ, it doesn't make sense. It's like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So I kind of questioned a lot. I was very inquisitive as a child. I think when I became in my teenage years, I became very inquisitive. Each to their own, but I felt spiritually as a Catholic maybe unfulfilled. I seen guys go to mass and the next night they're out fighting on the streets. So I thought, what's that about?
Yeah.
So I was sort of basically always on my own thinking things out. I had no support, never had support around me, never. But I knew there was something just nibbling. There was something just there. I would say maybe when I was 15, 16, I started to really think about things spiritually, question things a lot. I wanted to know more about Christ, but nobody wasn't really telling me anything about him. So it was probably a bit of a lonely path I took, but I knew that deep down I was getting the small experiences. We small bits of small experiences, and I was just adding them all up into one piece. I knew God was beyond idea and concepts and thought, environment, conditions. I knew God was more subtle in a more secretive way.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I started doing meditations, and I felt like there'd be like electric buzzes you get. Meditation, I was kind of getting me buzzes up through my back, and thought this is happening. There's something here higher. There's a higher intelligence running the show here. So I would say basically being inquisitive, and then just didn't just stop at one thing. Kept on just looking more and going like I was like a dog with a bone, but stubborn. I just wanted to know more and became very inquisitive. Then I started reading. The first time I sort of got a breakthrough was reading my first spiritual book by Tony DeMello, Awareness.
Yeah, he was the Jesuit priest
Yeah.
who was from India and lived in India.
Yeah, he was pretty good. He was sort of saying, "Wake up, people are sleeping. Wake up." It's me thinking, God, this is good.
Yeah.
Drawing me in. DeMello just took me in. And then I sort of got into Buddhism, and then I heard Yogananda, and then sort of that was boom. That was the door opening. 100% there.
Yes.
So it's just down to probably being inquisitive and just seeking more, want to understand more.
Yes.
Maybe not.
I want to just go back to something you said, because I think it's an important piece for everybody, that you had this hunger, this inquisitiveness, and also some loneliness.
Yeah, but I was never lonely. Never felt it.
Yeah.
The paradox was,
Yes, that it's been my personal experience, but also my experience working with people for years now who have a deep thirst for God, that they often go through a period of loneliness because most of the people around them, it doesn't kind of speak to your soul.
Yeah.
But there's something about that loneliness, if we can stay with it, that it's like tilling the soil of our hearts.
Yeah.
It's purifying our hearts and getting us ready for something bigger and beyond. So keep going.
So, as I said, Craig, I was always interested and wanted to learn more about Christ, and I think it was Yogananda's Easter Sunrise speech, 1951, where he spoke about Christ, the cosmic Christ. And I was thinking, wow, this is it. This is it.
Yeah.
This is the opening I need. This is I can understand this. I've never heard this teaching before. but I knew deep down this guy knows what he's talking about. He knows.
Can you say a little bit more of how the notion of the cosmic Christ, the universal Christ, what you mean by that, and how that spoke to you, Conor?
I think, with Christians here, Christ is very limited in faith. He's very limited here in the Catholic tradition and the Protestant tradition. Christ, the universal Christ is basically to know the workings of yourself. To turn inward, you turn inward to Christ. That's how you understand the Christ is turning inward.
Yes.
And, that to me is the universal Christ, found in Christ in science and meditation and the business of life as well.
Yes.
He's not limited
Yeah.
to one or two things. He's in the breeze, he's in the flowers, as Yogananda says,
That's
He's
beautiful.
all there.
Teresa of Avila, she was a 16th century Catholic mystic, Carmelite. Mm-hmm. And she talked about the formless Christ.
Yeah.
But I think gets at the same thing that Yogananda talks about in terms of the universal Christ, the cosmic Christ. And she almost got in trouble with the Spanish Inquisition because they thought that was heresy. Yeah. And there was a Franciscan priest who found something in the teachings of Thomas Aquinas where he talked about the formless Christ. So it got her off the hook. Yeah. But Yogananda talks about that Christ consciousness permeating every speck of creation, including us.
Yeah. I remember Yogananda once said Christ was in floating universes right down to the dew drop and a single blade of grass, or the heartbeat of a single blade of grass. Is me thinking, wow, it's such a vast, it's such a small thing. Just bring it down,
Yes.
That's amazing. That's the teachings where Christ's presence was everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Sometimes, occasionally, I will get somebody who, and I'll say this kindly, who has a conservative Christian background. And they will say, because of the teachings that I teach, which are really Yogananda's teachings and the teachings of the mystical saints, that I am somehow short-circuiting Christ or limiting Christ. And I say, no. You are limiting Christ, because I'm saying that Christ can be present and work through a Hindu, a Buddhist, that Christ is so large, so to speak, that he can work in many ways, and the same consciousness that was in Jesus is in everyone. So we are not the ones that are limiting Christ. It's the people who want to keep Christ in a one singular person who lived 2,000 years ago, not recognizing that Christ is in everyone.
Yeah. It's, I know people and they've got to know what I'm doing now, centered prayer, contemplative living. And all they want me to say one word, Conor, say you're saved. I said, if I say one word, what's it matter, say the word saved. I was going, oh, why,
Yes. But, so tell me how that insight from Yogananda has made a difference in your life. Where is it taking you?
In my meditations, Craig, and in my prayers, I always wanted to get closer to Christ. And I always prayed Yogananda, just direct me, show me the way, direct me on the path, show me the Christ. And I firmly believe that I got there. I've now a deeper understanding of Christ, maybe through the Carmelite spirituality of surrender and abandonment, love and gaze, resting in the heart of Christ. I was thinking, this is good, But without Yogananda, I firmly believe I wouldn't have that faith that I have now. Wouldn't have that understanding of Christ.
Yeah.
So I feel blessed that way.
I always tell people that in this paradoxical kind of way, Yogananda made me a better Christian.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. Oh, believe that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the spiritual path is a great journey. You know, we've no control over it. We don't control how the path's going to go. And I learned that because I found one time, Craig, I was studying in books. I was reading the books and reading and reading and reading. And for about 7 to 10 days, I was just ticking out, left, abandoned, and I could not connect to anything. And I think
Kind
the
of like
lesson,
a dark night of the soul.
yeah, I think what I learned in that was don't get too mixed up in words. Go with your emotions, go with your intuitive, your feelings, you know. And that was a tough 10 days. It was like the water tap was turned off, completely just too. But I sat and I meditated and I prayed and I kept on going the way I would do normally. You know, I didn't say, oh, that's me now. I just kept to it. Because God loves God loves a seeker, you know, and I just wouldn't let go. I kept going, you know. It's too good not to keep going, you know. You know.
Yes.
But I feel blessed, but yet I feel I have a long way to go.
Yes.
You
Well,
know?
if I can just share two quick thoughts, because a lot of people listening either have or maybe are presently going through a dark night or will go through a dark night.
Mm-hmm.
And to know that, and often when people go through a dark night, they think, well, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
Is there something I'm missing? I'm not meditating the right way. To realize that sooner or later, everybody has to go through a dark night.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not necessarily a sign that you're doing something wrong. In fact, it may be a sign that you're doing something right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I love your faithfulness. You continued to meditate, you continued with your practice. That allows God to purify something on the inside that then opens us up to a whole new level of experience of the divine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to underscore that, because sometimes people think they shouldn't be going through it or they've done something wrong.
No.
It's a sign that you're doing something right.
Yeah. I feel sometimes the personality just has to be removed.
Yes.
You know, you get in the way, sometimes you're going to have to be removed. And I think God heals you. I think it's a great healing that takes place during dry periods. I think you're deeply healed. And when the unexpected happens, you feel that return. It's a good feeling. When that return comes back to you, go, oh, you know, it's a great feeling, you know.
Yes.
You're back. You know.
Yes. So let me ask you this. Part of what I like about your story is that you don't live in a monastery. There's nothing wrong with living in a monastery. It's a beautiful lifestyle, but you are living in the world.
Mm-hmm.
As we mentioned at the beginning of our podcast, that you have a wife, you have 7 children. I think ages, you told me earlier, 5
to 23.
5 to 23. How does that Christ consciousness manifest itself in your family life, your dealings with your children, as a father, as a husband? How do you see it working out in the nitty gritty of your day-to-day life? Because I think that's important, because most of us listening are householders. We're not going to be monks. We're not going to be hermits.
Mm-hmm.
We're living in the world. So how does that Christ consciousness that you tapped into, how does it manifest as a father and as a husband?
Patience. Understanding as well. I would say in my life now I'm more patient, I'm more of a listener than maybe I've ever been. A better husband as well, because the way I look at contemplative life, when I'm learning to look at, when I look at people now, you look beyond the surface of anybody, no matter who they are. You look beyond the surface and you see Christ in their soul, and that's where the point I want to get to. We just see, all you're seeing is Christ in their soul. And I remember a story, I think it was Tony DeMello told me, read in Tony DeMello's book, was called The Monk and the Householder. It said the monk has all the time in the world to contemplate God, to pray, to commune with nature. And it says the householder is up at 3 a.m. in the morning, a sick kid, bills to pay. They might be short of money to pay the next bill, pay their TV license or car insurance. He says, now we're talking saintly. The householder is there. It's
Yes.
it's challenging. That's the challenges are. The challenge it is in the householder.
Yes.
There's more challenges. But
Those challenges are kind of like sandpaper, that when we surrender them to God and see them as God, they smooth out all the rough edges.
Yeah. So I'd say, Craig, I've definitely, the contemplative life has definitely balanced me out as well. I probably went through a phase in my early spiritual path where I was sort of in the cave, working out my own things and stuff like that there. But now I've come out of the desert a bit and I'm more balanced, hopefully more balanced, and hopefully more loving as well. You just can't be with God in meditation. I think the real work is outside meditation.
Yes.
The real work is that's your real work is outside meditation, outside of prayer time.
Yes.
That's the hardest challenge, but it works anyways. It works for me, Craig. It works.
Yes. Well, if we can't take what we experience in meditation and find a way of integrating it into our activity, then two things: it doesn't have a lot of value, really.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And secondly, if we can hold a measure of peace when there's tension with a spouse, or when our children are pressing on us, or the world, or paying bills, if we can, Yogananda said, what you experience in meditation, take with you in activity.
Yeah.
So if we can kind of cultivate that zone of interior silence, when we're engaged in activity, then we really have it.
Yeah.
We really have it.
Yeah.
If we can't do that, then we have more work to do. That's where as we say in America, the pedal hits the metal.
Yeah.
If you can hold that sense of God in activity, and we may lose it occasionally, but bring it back and express patience and express love and listening and wisdom in all of our affairs, then we have an unshakable level of realization.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I have a friend who is a practicing Buddhist, and he has a Lama living in northern India that is his personal teacher.
Oh, yeah.
And this Lama said to him, that you reached a high level of enlightenment in your last life. But he said you did it in a hut or in a cave all by yourself. He said, now you have to do it in the world. Then you really have it. So he's married and has a business. That's where the realization really gets solidified.
I remember.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I remember Craig, Brother Lawrence said in the practice in the presence of God. I think he wrote this in letter 6 to a friend, where he says that his friend was sort of inquisitive. How did you come to this point of feeling the presence of God? And Brother Lawrence said that in the world, all I see is God. He's me thinking, wow, that's deep. That's the pinnacle.
Yeah.
All there was me and God in the world.
Yeah.
Wow. So I thought, wow, that's it.
Yeah. Sometimes people will say to me, but what about people who aren't behaving well? And I say, well, sometimes God misbehaves. You got to love God even when God is misbehaving.
I know a few people I wouldn't drink coffee with.
So where do you see the second half of your life going? You're really beginning this path as a teacher. Do you have an intuition of where God may be taking you in that role?
don't look into the future much, you know. I would like to see myself in the future of giving people direction, a method, the direction, the method I didn't have, you know, and nothing like that growing up. So it's just basically passing on a method to give them experience, and something it's really down to them to do it. You know what, you can give the tools where you go, but it's really down to them to make the effort. But I would want people to experience God in their life and experience that presence, and that is what is driving me to take on this role.
Mm.
That's what I want to do. I just want to make people feel like, yeah, experience the presence of God basically in your life. Experience it. It's real. It can't be found in the book nor church, but it's only you can find yourself.
And let me, underscore this. Yogananda says that Jesus asked Babaji to send somebody to the United States, to the West, to teach Kriya Yoga because there were saints awaiting to be awakened and not enough shepherds, so to speak, to awaken them. And I say this from the bottom of my heart, all of my intuitions line up. I really do believe that it is God that has called you to this role as a spiritual mentor, spiritual teacher, and that God is the wind at your back, guiding you and propelling you. I just want to underscore, I just want to validate your own sense of calling. And just to say that there are more and more people, particularly in this crazy world, who are hungry for God.
Yeah.
And particularly somebody like yourself who can move back and forth between Christianity and Kriya Yoga and some of these different traditions.
Yeah.
Because I think there's more and more people from the West who have a kind of fundamentally Christian kind of instinct, but they know there's more and they want to go deeper and they want to integrate. So I just want to validate your calling, not that you need me to do that, and just say it feels so right. And I'm going to do something spontaneous here that I've never done. You and I off camera should have a conversation about you being formally initiated into Kriya Yoga and then being able to teach Kriya Yoga to other people. So we'll have a conversation offline about that.
Great.
But I'm just going with my own inner intuition here, and it just feels right.
Accepted.
So we will talk about that offline, off camera.
Great.
It just feels right. I'm going with the movement of the spirit. I sometimes drive people around me crazy with that, but usually it works out well.
Yeah.
So let me just ask you this question. Maybe it'd be a good point to kind of, draw to a conclusion our conversation today. What do you want to say to people who are listening? People that are hungry for God, people like yourself who are householders and living in the world and are looking for God. What do you want to say to them?
What I think, if you have a desire for God and you have no direction, I would advise people to sit in silence. Put your thoughts to one side because you're not your thoughts. You're the space between your thoughts. You're that awareness. Find the space, and the space grows in time and effort, and you'll feel yourself more enhanced, and you'll get more experiences, and you'll know that there's something of a higher intelligence running the show here because I'm not running it. There's something within yourself and outside yourself that is running the show. And I think it's found, first of all, laying your thoughts to one side and finding that silence and peace and stillness. So meditation is a great tool. It just opens up your heart. And in the silence, surrender. Give all to God. Let go. Let God take over. I think surrender. We've all got problems. We've all got things that annoy us. Just give them to God. and rest in that silence and just say, God, it's out of my control. I give all to you. And it works.
It's beautiful. And
You know,
it does work. I think particularly in all the craziness that's going on in the world, what you're saying is so relevant that I'm not in charge, you're not in charge, and collectively we're not really in charge. There's a greater intelligence that is love at its essence that is running the show and taking us where we need to go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to realize that we have to play our part, but the burden of our lives, they're not on us. The burden of our lives are on God and the guru who's guiding us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have that big exhale and which really allows God to work through us even better. But yeah, we're not even in charge of our own lives.
No, definitely not. No.
It
I just want to
reminds
read
me
you. Sorry, Craig. I want to read you. Just want to see. I won this book in auction. It's a vintage St. John of the Cross poems. It's actually a 1950 edition.
Oh,
and
wow.
I read this today, and it goes, I'm going to read this to Craig. This is a wee extract from one of his poems. And this, to me, just showed you the devotion St. John of the Cross had. He says, how gently and lovingly you waken my heart, where in secret you dwell alone. And in your sweet breathing, filled with good and glory, how tenderly you swell my heart with love. I thought that's nice. Just that indwelling of love.
That is perfect. That is perfect. Perfect. Well, I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you. I really do. I don't say this lightly. I consider you to be a spiritual brother.
Thank you and you, Craig, and you.
And I do believe that God has brought us together, and Yogananda has brought us together. And again, I just have this intuition that we're going to have a long friendship, and I think we're going to be in each other's lives for lifetimes. So it all feels right and wonderful. And I just want to thank you. Vicky and I, my wife and I, feel your support from across the ocean. And that means a lot to us.
Every Thursday, Craig, I stay up an extra few hours, you know.
That's like, it starts at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, your time.
Yeah, it starts at midnight, ends at 1 o'clock. And my wife goes, is that Craig? Is that Craig on? I goes, yes, Craig. And I have my headphones on, you know.
That is so sweet. That is so sweet. So again, I just want to thank you. And I just think that you have a wonderful spirit and that God really is going to be using you. And I hope you take this in the right vein. You feel like a spiritual warrior.
Celtic warrior, Celtic.
Yes. Yes. Yogananda was a spiritual warrior. Jesus was a spiritual warrior. And it's not about violence, but it's that ability to stand firm and to live for God and to be the strength of God through you in the world. So I just feel that you are a spiritual warrior.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. So I will close with a prayer, with Yogananda's closing prayer in a moment, but I just want to tell people that if they like this podcast, to please like it. Please make a comment. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I'm going to be doing about 2 podcasts a month, wonderful podcasts like this intended to build people up and encourage people. So please subscribe. And Conor, again, it has been wonderful.
And you, Craig. Thank you.
And I want you to know that I'm adding you. There's a number of people I pray for every day. I'm adding you to the list.
Thank you.
Okay. So Yogananda's closing prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, all the Kriya gurus and saints and angels who walk from us from the unseen realm. May thy love shine forever on the sanctuary of our devotion. And may we be able to awaken thy love in all hearts. Om, peace, Shanti, Shalom.